Are there 300,000 missing immigrant children from under the Biden administration? Simply, the answer is no. This is very misleading reporting that's been done about this issue, and the headlines are all very flashy and get your attention, but there are not 300,000 missing immigrant children. So, what this is referring to is basically after kids are released from immigration detention to their sponsor in the community, this means that maybe somebody tried to give them a call to do some follow up afterward and they didn't pick up the phone, right? They just weren't able to get in touch with them. They're not missing. The headlines kind of make it sound like there's 300,000 kids who have been kidnapped or trafficked, and that's just not the case. So, what happens is that unaccompanied children go through a network of youth shelters that are run by the Office of Refugee Resettlement. They are placed with a sponsor who is generally a family member or a family friend who's already here in the US. Once they're released to that person, there's no requirement that they follow up with the youth shelter or respond to phone calls. And in the majority of cases, the government's not even trying to do any follow up. There's very little oversight or follow up once these kids are released. But with these kids who were attempted to be contacted, they basically just didn't pick up the phone. Maybe their phone number changed. Maybe they didn't know who was calling. Maybe they were fearful of answering phone calls from a government that deported so many people. So there's lots of reasons why kids and their family members may not want to be in contact with the government after being released from the shelter, and they are not required to do so. So these headlines are really, really misleading, and I think it's really irresponsible journalism. And I think the Trump administration now is using this number and the scare tactics of these headlines to justify their policies by saying that we're going to have these really harsh immigration policies because we want to protect children from trafficking. And that's just not true, right? If they really wanted to protect kids from trafficking and abuse, there are much better ways to do it than by deporting kids and their family members, right? That's not protecting anyone. That's not protecting the kids. It's not protecting their families. It's not making our community safer. It's just using fear-mongering tactics and pretend concern to justify these really harsh immigration policies that we're seeing. If they truly wanted to protect these kids, for example, they wouldn't have tried to end legal services for unaccompanied kids. They would have made sure that every unaccompanied child has an attorney by their side, or better yet, that we weren't even putting unaccompanied kids in deportation proceedings. There are so many better ways to provide resources and support for these kids if you really care about their safety. So don't be fooled by these talking points, by these headlines. There are not 300,000 missing children. These are just kids who didn't pick up the phone when the government came calling, and that is totally their right to do so and their caregiver's right.